Hey Internet. One of the most frustrating things about being an artist is the fact that everyone has an opinion about art regardless of how informed they are on the subject. And much to my chagrin, a lot of the conversation surrounding contemporary art is controversy over whether or not something should even be considered art at all. This in part might be due to the fact that many artists are reticent to reveal their process, preferring instead to shield the secrets of their practice, not from the prying eyes of a public all too anxious to declare, "My kid could do that," but from the ravenous thieving scoundrels they call their peers, other artists. Or, in the words of Pablo Picasso, lesser artists borrow, great artists steal. And it should come as no surprise that Picasso was paraphrasing a quote from Russian composer Igor Stravinsky, who in turn was paraphrasing the poet T.S. Eliot, who stated, "Immature poets imitate, mature poets steal." In addition to stealing each other's ideas, artists also love talking crap about each other and the art world in general. And in a masochistic way, the art world encourages it because any press is good press. Which is why something like a banana duct taped to a wall at an art fair captured the imagination of the public for a brief period of time in 2019. The work in question is titled The Comedian by artist Maurizio Cattelan, and full disclosure, I stand with those who call it art. Not because it's good art, no, quite the opposite really. Nonetheless, I like it. In fact, I liked The Comedian so much I painted it. Why? Well, mostly out of jealousy and spite. I mean, here I am working my ass off, toiling away at my easel in obscurity while this jackal goes out and gets fame and fortune for taping a damn banana to a wall. At the same time, I couldn't help but laugh when I thought of all the other artists and gallerists at the 2019 Art Basel Miami who probably spent a lot of money to be there, only to be upstaged by a banana. And painting The Comedian helped me process some of the more conflicting and contradictory thoughts I had about the work. I also had never painted a banana before and thought it would be funny. Having worked at an art museum for the better part of a decade, it's become very apparent to me that the art world takes itself very seriously, and understandably so considering the insane amount of capital that flows through it. Likewise, artists also tend to take themselves very seriously, which leaves people with the impression that in order for something to be considered a fine art, it has to be solemn, or profound, or esoteric, or incomprehensible. Really anything but humorous. Comedy, and this applies to the creative arts in general, is often dismissed as lowbrow, superfluous, or a taboo unworthy of the serious artist's time. But I find myself allied with the Dadaists and the Taoists. I do not make a distinction between life and art, and I believe the art should encompass, or at the very least attempt to portray, the whole spectrum of human experience. And I consider humor to be a noble pursuit, as it allows us to confront the injustice and absurdity we see in the world around us. And the art world is rife with injustice and absurdity, but what I think people fail to realize is that these problems mostly stem from the mechanics of capitalism that drive market speculation and the commodification of art. A Cavendish banana taped to a wall, of which 2 editions were sold, managed to rake in $240,000 because there was, for one reason or another, a market for it. I know we like to think of the art world as a meritocracy where only the best and brightest artists get to occupy the spotlight, but the free market says otherwise. And on top of that, now we have the emergence of non-fungible tokens, or NFTs, which completely subvert art market gatekeeping altogether. To quote Dean Kissick, we are seeing images and capital become the same thing through the total financialization of reality. Now it should be noted that those who bought The Comedian weren't paying for the physical object. That'd be dumb. Rather, they are buying a license to display an authenticated recreation of the work. It's conceptual art. It's capitalist realism taken to its extreme. As a work of art, it exists not as an object, but as intellectual property. Anyone can tape a banana to a wall and call it art. Yes, even your kid could do that, and no one can stop you. But you can't tape a banana to a wall and call it a Maurizio Cattelan original. That would be a forgery and considered fraud. But what I consider to be the funniest and possibly most tragic part of this whole saga is the fact that the Cavendish banana is a monoculture that doesn't produce fertile seeds. Essentially, every banana you've ever eaten has been a clone of itself. Monocultures lack genetic diversity, making them extremely susceptible to disease, and the Cavendish faces the very real threat of extinction. Such was the fate of the strain known as the Gros Michel that was wiped out by Panama disease in the 1960s. While it's doubtful you've ever tasted the superior sweetness of the strain before, you are most certainly familiar with its particularly slippery peels that became fodder for slapstick gags in early 20th century comedy during the golden age of film, and later frustrating obstacles in Mario Kart. Now, I'm not sure if the artist was trying to call attention to the plight of the Cavendish, because I never bothered to actually do any research for this rant, but it's kind of funny to think that it may very well become impossible to recreate the comedian in the future if the Cavendish does go extinct. It probably won't, thanks to advancements in biotechnology and genetic engineering, but there's still a very real chance it could. So savor that banana while you still can. There's actually a lot more I could say about the very serious socio-political symbolism of the comedian, and if you're curious, just Google United Fruit Banana Massacre. But I think I've made my point. Ultimately, if you can't see the humor and laugh at the expensive banana taped to a wall at a fancy art fair and the circus that produced it, then maybe you're taking this whole art thing a little too seriously.